Hello and welcome back to Dystopia Now. I'm Kate Willett.
I'm Emil Torres.
And today, for our main topic, we're going to be talking about Eliezer Yudkowsky. But first, just wanted to say hi. I just got back from Cuba. I just went on a delegation with DSA. And I was thinking about how that relates to our podcast. But, it's hard to relate because it's like it doesn't have advertisements anywhere. It's like, I was going to say it's the opposite of capitalism, which is, it legitimately is a socialist country. This is not a new observation, Yeah. But there is a lot of hunger for better internet access there. And it was weird to go someplace that has been kind of completely uncorrupted by these tech losers. There are no rationalists in the Yudkowsky sense in Cuba at all. There's no effective altruists. There's just nothing. There's nothing like that whatsoever. And I did really enjoy that.
Yeah. That sounds like my version of utopia.
It could be. Cuba is going through a very difficult economic situation right now. Starting in 2020. They were hit very hard by the pandemic because they closed the border to tourism, and that, since the Soviet Union collapsed, has really been the main source of money in their economy. And then they also screwed around with their currency situation a little bit, where they used to have two currencies and they combined it into one, but in order to tie it to the value of hard currencies like the euro and the dollar and stuff, they intentionally devalued it. But then it ended up crashing far more than they wanted it to. And so now the buying power of their currency for Cuban people within the country is just, they've had a huge inflation, 30% or something like that. And then of course there's the longstanding US embargo, which has just completely starved them of many critical supplies, things that all of us take for granted, like Advil, bandages, hygiene products. It's tough. It's not like you can't get that stuff, but it's a tube of toothpaste, it has to go through, it might even be from the United States, but it has to go through a third country and then back to this Caribbean island. So it's not cheaper than the toothpaste in the US.
Yeah.
It's more expensive, and people are earning far less money, so they've been in a very difficult situation, which has been what the U.S. has wanted for years and years and years, since Castro came to power. But there are also just a ton of amazing things about it, and I don't know, it was such a cool place to visit. I definitely recommend that people go.
Yeah. It sounds amazing. My understanding from talking to people who know a lot more than I do about the topic is that Cuba has done remarkably well during the post-war era, despite the embargo from the U.S. U.S. has taken every opportunity it's had to destroy Cuba, right? And it's still done pretty well. It has a pretty decent healthcare system.
Beyond decent. It's an even amazing healthcare system.
Yeah.
They have the most educated doctors in the entire world. The way that they handle patient care and preventative health is many miles more advanced than what's going on in the United States. They're training doctors from all over the world, but what they don't have is Band-Aids. So it's this situation where they have been able to come so far as a country in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, literacy. They have an entire government institute for LGBT rights. Imagine if in this country, even in a Democratic administration, there was a department of the government whose job it was to advocate for better gender-affirming care and social support for trans people. It's unthinkable. They're so much more advanced than the U.S. in many ways, and also being just completely starved of supplies. They have invented, medicines for, vaccines, all the kinds of stuff that they, haven't been able to get. Their scientists and researchers have made it, but what they don't have is slides for the microscopes,
Yeah, yeah.
And I think particularly since Trump took office again, I mean, like the embargo has always been very devastating, but Trump really amped it up a lot. He put them on the state sponsors of terrorism list, and like, there's no fucking. I'm comfortable saying there's no terrorism going on. It's just a country full of people who are just trying to live their lives. And
Yeah, with their Antifa.
yeah. It's a country controlled by Antifa, and and that is why I went for the Antifa convention. But so yeah, fuck the embargo. All right, on to our main topic, something that you would never see in Cuba, which is the horror that is Eliezer Yudkowsky. I think a lot of our listeners may know who Yudkowsky is, but in case you are extremely lucky and you have never encountered this truly odious individual before, who is Yudkowsky? What's his fucking deal, I guess?
First of all, if you've never encountered him before, I don't know, maybe you should stop listening to the episode right now. I know that's not the thing I should say, but maybe you don't want to know about this guy.
Yeah.
He is he's a leading...
I was just going to say, if you just want to know like a little bit, I would prefer, maybe little incel Nazi bitch. I don't know. Like, yeah. Yeah. Techno-fascist freak show. Yeah.
He's arguably the most prominent AI doomer out there. He calls himself a decision theorist, even though he's never made any contributions to the field of decision theory, right? So the field of decision theory, it's been around for decades. There's a lot of really interesting work. There are some competing theories out there. If you've ever studied the topic, you'll know what those are. Yudkowsky has proposed his own alternative accounts of what it means to what rationality requires of us in certain decision situations. But these ideas have never caught on in academia. In fact, it's hard to find any academics who've even mentioned these theories, precisely because they are so bad, right? So many academics look at Yudkowsky's decision theoretic ideas and say, like, it's just a non-starter. This is just like sophomoric stuff. And so they dismiss it out of hand. So we'll see that this is kind of a theme in Yudkowsky's work. He claims to have expert level knowledge on a wide range of topics, and yet there is no good reason to think that he has any of that knowledge, right? He's published almost zero peer-reviewed articles. And inside academia, he's not influential at all. Outside of academia, he, in the early 2000s, even the 1990s, he did foster connections with some very wealthy people, including Peter Thiel, who has financially supported Yudkowsky's institute, which is originally called the Singularity Institute and is now renamed to the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, or MIRI.
Yeah, which you may know from our Zizians episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they all came out of. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And CFAR.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we mentioned, at one point we described the Zizians as a cult spinoff of a cult, right?
Yeah.
That main cult is rationalism, and that was founded by Yudkowsky, right?
I mean, it's just like, it's so frustrating because I promise I'll bring this back for a second, but I saw these people on the internet yesterday talking about the great work that these people are doing on AI regulation or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to think of the way to explain no, this isn't real AI regulation. This isn't regulation that is written by people who give a shit about, exploitation and making, not having a surveillance state or, not having child pornography or whatever. They don't fucking care about that shit. Yeah. It's not real AI regulation. And I feel like Yudkowsky, more than anyone else, is at the center of the completely fake AI regulation movement that is also very close to the people who want no regulation at all. And I guess, do you have a way to explain that it isn't so confusing and wordy,
All they care about is existential risk,
Yeah.
That's all they care about, because existential risk by definition is any event that prevents us from realizing this techno-utopian world among the stars, where we become post-human and all live in these vast computer simulations. Ultimately, we become digital space brains. Right, that's the vision. Yudkowsky himself refers to this as, quote, our glorious transhumanist future. And so, things like algorithmic bias, environmental impact of large language models, worker exploitation, these are all just very small things that basically fade into nothingness when you zoom out far enough and take a grand cosmic perspective of humanity's position in cosmic space and time. And given the fact that we are supposedly on the verge of building basically a god-like AI, if we get it wrong, then we lose everything, that whole future, right? If we get it right, if it's controllable, then we get utopia, right? We get to upload our minds.
I fucking hate these people so much.
Yeah.
I know I'm really spicy today because I'm just coming back from vacation, but these people are so annoying. Like, it's kind of making me have empathy for the horrible Zizians, because I'm like, you know what? If I hung out with these people all the time, maybe I would start a murder cult. Maybe that would be the path that I took also. Like, they're so fucking irritating and dangerous as well, But like, I think that the arrogance, the lack of empathy for basically 99.99% of the people in the world who are just like going to their jobs and trying to survive. I mean, the fact that these motherfuckers will just openly state that they do not care about that whatsoever, and that that's just not important to them in any way. Like, sorry, but get fucked, loser. I hate him.
I mean, I've said before that if people like Yudkowsky want individuals to care about preserving the future, they need to present a picture of the future that is worth preserving, right? And so this is why I see these sort of near-term concrete issues like those that have to do with social justice and AI as being inextricably bound up with worries about the survival of our species, right? I don't think you can care about ensuring the survival of humanity and not care about social justice issues, right? So, for example, to make this a bit less abstract, if you are part of Group X, right, and whether or not humanity as a whole survives, Group X will be eliminated. If you're part of Group X, then what is the point? Where's the motivation to care about ensuring that humanity as a whole survives? And so that's why I think it's really important to present views of the future that are sensitive, deeply sensitive to these near-term, quote-unquote, near-term concrete social justice issues. You just can't separate them. At least that's my view. So I very much care about the continued survival of our species, but that is not in competition or in tension with my another passion that I have, which is the near-term social justice consequences of developing these AI systems. And you mentioned arrogance. I would say Yudkowsky has an ego the size of Jupiter. He is one of the most egomaniacal characters who I've come across maybe ever, right? So he, for example, he wrote an autobiography when I think he was age 20, might have been 21. So first of all, what kind of person writes an autobiography at that age?
What is it? Just like a survey of like different times he did math and jerked off? What do you have to say as like a 21-year-old nerd? I
know. Well, here's what he says towards the end. First of all, he repeatedly refers to himself as a genius. For example, he says, "I was the class genius and everybody knew it." On another occasion, he said, "Then I thought maybe that's why my genius isn't an evolutionary advantage." And he closes his essay with the following messianic proclamations. I'll just read the 2 short paragraphs in full. "It would be absurd to claim to represent the difference between a solvable and unsolvable problem in the long run, but one genius can easily spell the difference between cracking the problem of intelligence in 5 years and cracking it in 25. That's why I matter. And that's why I think my efforts could spell the difference between life and death for most of humanity, or even the difference between a singularity and a lifeless, sterilized planet. Nonetheless, I think that I can save the world Not just because I'm the one who happens to be making the effort, but because I'm the only one who can make the effort. And that is why I get up in the morning. So
Ew.
it's just unbelievably arrogant. and and so he has claimed that everything he wrote before sometime around 2001, maybe like 2002, he disavows, he repudiates. So he has distanced himself from, for example, this autobiography. But I would say, despite him trying to do that, to distance himself, his messianic sense of self-importance has absolutely endured. Right. And this is despite the fact that he has repeatedly got things very wrong. He has, for example, predicted the end of the world on numerous occasions. So reading from an article that I published recently in TruthDig, in 1996, Yudkowsky confidently declared that the singularity, the moment at which computers become more intelligent than humanity, would happen in 2021, though he quickly updated this to 2025. He also predicted that nanotechnology would suddenly emerge and kill everyone by 2010. In the early aughts, the self-described genius claimed that his team of quote-unquote researchers at the Singularity Institute would build an artificial superintelligence, quote, probably around 2008 or 2010, at which point the world would undergo a fundamental and irreversible transformation.
It's like 2010, and it's like, oh, I'm wrong. Nanotechnology has not emerged. It turns out it was Edward Sharp and the magnetic zeros that I was predicting the emergence of. So, yeah, sorry about that.
That would have been an amazing prediction if it were that specific.
Yeah.
Edward Sharp.
2010 was such a good year compared to now. I mean, like, I saw Yudkowsky's TED Talk, and that was like it has a huge number of views. And I'm thinking about, like, the people who just encounter him and are like, oh, this guy is like sounding the alarm about the risks of AI. And it's genuinely so much more dangerous than that. Like, as you noted in your article, he's obsessed with eugenics, has an incredible amount of influence within this community of really, I think, tech fascists in San Francisco. I mean, maybe a few years ago it would have been controversial to say that, but no, like a lot of these people like Musk and Thiel and stuff, they're pretty open, full-blown fash at this point. And I mean, it's just, I don't know, like the idea that this guy who is, I think, no better than a typical kind of like religious nutcase who's like predicting the end of the world and starting his cult. It's just that he's like, he's like been mainstreamed, know?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people who are now regurgitating his ideas don't understand just how strange some of his claims have been. I mean, I think of Yudkowsky as a complete fraud and a complete crank. Like the guy has almost no understanding of philosophy. He doesn't even understand. Apparently, the evidence suggests he doesn't understand key ideas in computer science. I'll discuss some examples in a moment. But for example, he's argued that pigs and almost all animals are almost certainly not conscious. I'm quoting a blogger named Bentham's Bulldog there, who wrote a really detailed critique of some outrageous ideas that Yudkowsky has defended. So Yudkowsky argues, sort of contra most of the effective altruist community that he's hugely influential in, that pigs and animals at that sort of level do not have conscious experiences, right? Despite the obvious evidence that they can in fact feel pain. So that's one of the claims he's made. There was another time he provided this lengthy, long-winded, verbose refutation of an argument called the philosophical zombie argument. We don't need to go into what exactly that is, but it's very, very influential and quite famous in philosophy, put forward by a philosopher named David Chalmers, who's probably the most famous philosopher around today, maybe at the same level as Peter Singer. So anyways, in this refutation, like Yudkowsky just completely misunderstands the idea, to the point where David Chalmers himself responded under Yudkowsky's blog post and said, "You simply do not understand what I'm talking about." On another occasion, somebody asked Brian Kaplan, economist who we've referenced on
That's the incel economist, right?
You might be thinking of Robin Hanson, but Robin Hanson
gotcha.
so they're in the same department.
So I really could have said that about anyone. You're like, it's a different incel economist.
Yes.
What are they, like George Mason people or what?
I think that's right.
Yeah. That department needs to be.
Isn't it Koch funded?
Yeah, it needs to be,
so.
and Teal as well. I don't really know what to do except to send them into the sea. It's just such a. I mean, yeah, and there was a period in the 2010s where it looked like they might go to the sea, but unfortunately they stayed around, and we're all paying the price for it. Yeah.
So at some point, Brian Kaplan tweeted the following question: "At what point does the probability that abortion is an act of murder first exceed 50%? And he gave a bunch of options here: conception, middle of second trimester, middle of third trimester, day before birth. Yudkowsky responded and he said, "No option for like 18 months? That means 18 months old."
Jesus.
"I am not a student of developmental psychology, but there's no way an infant has qualia, or subjective inner experience, at birth. Their brains are less reflective than most animals you eat." There's a different occasion a few years earlier where somebody said, "When does a fetus or an infant have a, quote, right to life, in your opinion? That is, at what point do you think it would be a bad thing if it died? Not for the sake of others who care about the infant, but for the sake of the baby itself or its own interests." And Yudkowsky replied, "Sometime after 1 year and before 6 years." Remember, the question was, when does a fetus infant have a right to life? Yudkowsky says sometime after 1 year and before 6 years. "I'd need to study child development a lot more before I could refine a guess at earliest qualia across most or all cases."
So he's just suggesting casually murdering children.
He's suggesting that might be okay.
I mean, and doesn't Peter Singer is like another guy who has suggested murdering children is okay as well, right? Like,
he's a fellow eugenicist who said the same thing, that infanticide might be perfectly fine from their utilitarian perspective, a perspective that Yudkowsky shares.
I mean, Jesus Christ, like I feel like I know some weird people in this world, comedians who love talking about their dicks and whatnot. But like, I mean, I don't know anyone who's just out here being like, "Oh, maybe we should kill 6-year-olds." I really don't,
It's, I mean, this is what, I've said before that anybody who describes themselves as a rationalist and isn't a professional philosopher, you should be skeptical of them, right? Because in professional philosophy, rationalist has a very different meaning, right? It's the antithesis of empiricism. There's rationalism and empiricism. Plato was a rationalist. René Descartes, perhaps most famously, was a rationalist. Very different sense of the term. And so I think Yudkowsky is sort of a cautionary tale about how a hyperfixation and a fetishization of rationality can go astray. Because there was another occasion, I'm almost certain we've brought this up before in previous episodes, where Yudkowsky published an article on Less Wrong in which he argued that if you're in a forced choice situation between, on the one hand, you could torture an individual for 50 years relentlessly, or there would be some unfathomable number of people who would suffer the almost perceptible discomfort of having a speck of dust in their eye. You should choose the first scenario, because the first scenario of somebody being tortured, that is better. It's less bad than a huge number of people having a speck of dust in their eye, because you just do the math, do the moral mathematics here. You add up.
So he's like legitimately in favor of the Oma lost child situation.
Yeah. So actually, I saw him reference this not that long ago on Twitter, in which he seemed to suggest that you should walk away from Oma loss. So you see the child who's abused and
And
neglected.
this is a short story by Ursula Le Guin. I'll just link it because it's only like 4 pages long and it's very good.
It's very, very good. Yeah. So basically, there's this wonderful the city in which life is absolutely wonderful for the residents, but for reasons that are never explained, and apparently those residents don't understand, the well-being of individuals in the city is somehow based on there being a child in some basement, a dark basement, who is completely neglected and doesn't have any clothes and so on. If that child were to be set free, then the city would collapse, right? And so people at a certain age in this fictional city, they go and they look at this child, and some of them decide that, well, it's a terrible thing, but it's kind of worth it. Right? That's a sort of moral mathematics. Other people see it, say, no, there's no way I could ever be okay with this, and they walk away. So that's why it's called The Ones Who Walk Away from Homeless. So Yudkowsky has suggested that I think, if I understood his tweet correctly, that he would walk away from homeless. But I think all that tells us is that Yudkowsky has a lot of inconsistent views. I don't think he has a coherent perspective on the world. I could give another example. He got into a debate online with Daniel Fagella, who we've mentioned before. So Fagella is the pro-extinctionist who argues that we should build AGI so that it can replace humanity. And by replace humanity, he means like we are out. Our species is kicked into the trash can, and we go extinct. Right, through replacement. So Yudkowsky got in this back and forth with Fagella online, in which Yudkowsky was arguing that it's really important for whatever successors we create to care about us. And if they fail to care about us and enable us to continue to survive, then they will not be our worthy successors. They'll be unworthy successors. So, okay, that position seems clear enough. Yet, on the other hand, Yudkowsky has repeatedly said in interviews and debates with other people that he is 100% fine. He's explicitly said this. He's 100% fine with some kind of digital post-human creature completely usurping humanity. Right? He's literally said that I am not worried that humanity will be replaced. What I'm worried about is that what replaces us won't be better. On another occasion, before the online debate with Daniel Fagella, Yudkowsky was actually interviewed by Fagella on Fagella's podcast. I think it's called The Trajectory or something like that. And Yudkowsky made this statement, quote, "If sacrificing all of humanity were the only way and a reliable way to get godlike things out there, superintelligences who still care about each other, who are still aware of the world and having fun, I would ultimately make that trade-off." He goes on to say that we're not faced with that situation right now. But if we were, he would sacrifice all of humanity so that these godlike superintelligences could go out and colonize the universe. So I think this just indicates that there are deep contradictions in with respect to things that he says. I don't believe he has a coherent worldview.
No, I mean, to me, when you're talking about this, it seems like his coherent worldview is that everything that he thinks is right. And, like by virtue of him thinking it, it's the correct thing to believe. Yeah. I mean, like not just a genius intellectually, he also considers himself some kind of moral genius as well. Like, thinking about the Omallah situation, okay, that story for our real literary heads here, it's not really about a village called Omalas, right? Like, it might have like some deeper messages in there, and I think that the idea is that we like the people in our society, like the reason that, we can thrive as people in the heart of US empire, or, people of a certain, class or whatever, it comes at the expense of others, and we're not willing to look at it and build a more just future. And I cannot think of any group of people who are more willing to exploit for their own personal gain and to justify that as a method of structuring society than this guy and all of his fucking tech friends. I mean, like, they want a world where they're literally willing to kill like almost everyone except for like their own weird incel buddies.
Yeah. I'll give you two more examples. One comes from Twitter once again. This was after Yudkowsky published an article in Time magazine, in which he argued that states ought to be willing to engage in targeted military strikes against
and he
what he
said
calls—
that in his TED Talk as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And in his book with Nate Soares, If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies. So states should be willing to engage in these military strikes against rogue data centers, even at the risk of triggering a thermonuclear conflict, right? Again, he reiterates this in his book that's gotten so much attention. And so somebody asked him online, quote, how many people are allowed to die to prevent AGI from being built in the near future? And his reply was basically everyone, as long as the human population does not dip below the minimum viable population. So that's the smallest number of individuals that are capable of perpetuating the species because they have sufficient genetic diversity, et cetera. So as long as we don't dip below that level, then to quote Yudkowsky, there's still a chance of reaching the stars someday, right? What is the minimum viable population? It's estimated to be between 150 individuals and 40,000 or so. I mean, there's a wide range of numbers, but that's a ballpark. So,
nobody is going to procreate and repopulate a species with Eliezer Yudkowsky. No one's doing it. I'm sorry. That guy looks like he smells like foot.
I mean, he did, one of our guests a couple months ago was Rachel.
Yeah, that was a good episode. And
really good.
We talked about his horny fan fiction, which was, ugh.
Yeah. And so the reason I mentioned this is I was looking at some of Rachel's tweets earlier today, and she mentioned, I think it was might have been a Reddit post that Yudkowsky had authored as part of this fiction that I guess he like co-authored with Kelsey Piper, the journalist at Fox. And
the abundance agenda champion, Kelsey Piper. Yeah.
Yeah. And in it, he's sort of fantasizing about impregnating a very large number of women to increase the average population, the average intelligence of the population by half a standard deviation, right? So,
ew.
It's
ew.
So ew. I mean, the guy thinks he has superior genes. He's smarter than everyone. Even though he consistently gets basic things in philosophy and in other fields like computer science, he consistently gets them wrong, right? I mean, he published on Less Wrong this very long sequence.
Why don't you take a second to just say what Less Wrong is, though? Because I feel like that is so core to who Yudkowsky's thing is. Like, it's a blogging site that he made, right? Where he can push his own ideas.
Yes. Yeah. So he was co-blogging with Robin Hanson, the economist you mentioned earlier, at Overcoming Bias. And then I guess it was about 2009, he started his own community blogging website, which is Less Wrong. So that's where he posted his articles, and a bunch of the articles, you think of them like chapters, he combines into what he calls sequences. Right. So, of course, they have to come up with their own
sequences, like he's a fucking composer or something.
Yeah.
No, you're a talentless hack who isn't good at anything except for making a cult for the world's biggest losers.
I mean, his biggest claim to fame before his book that was just published was his fan fiction, right? He wrote Harry Potter fan fiction.
You know what a bad person you have to be to make me to write Harry Potter fan fiction and then to me be like, you know what? I prefer the J.K. Rowling. Like,
Yeah.
like she's a better person than you at this point. Yeah.
I mean, there was. It's not just Harry Potter fan fiction, like Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, but there are all these other very, very long books that he has published. I think mostly as like sequences on Less Wrong or similar websites. Here's an example of one. He got into back and forth on social media with a computer scientist named Jan LeCun. Jan LeCun is very, very famous. In fact, he won the Turing Award, right? That's basically Nobel Prize for computer science. And in one of the tweets, Yudkowsky said, Jan's unfamiliarity with the prior literature, meaning like the rationalist AI doomer literature. So he says, Jan's unfamiliarity with the prior literature is clearly on display here. Whether an intelligence being submissive, quote unquote, suffices to make it easy to steer is a primary focus of what my 1.8 million word BDSM decision theory Dungeons and Dragons fiction, which Jan...
Wait, so okay, what does the BDSM stand for?
BDSM?
Yeah.
Oh, like the sex stuff?
Yeah, that's okay. I was just making sure. He means the sex stuff. That's fucking repulsive.
Yes, he means the sex stuff. Yeah.
I thought he probably did, but I was just like, no, that's way too disgusting. It can't be that, but it is. Oh my God.
So 1.8 million words. Just to be clear, that is an enormous number of words, right? I published a book last year that's 500 some pages, and it's 250,000 words.
That's
right?
so crazy. So, and how does the BDSM work in this whole situation? Is it like Harry? I mean, aren't the characters in the book children? Are they adults? What's going on?
So I hate myself in many ways. I wouldn't,
but not enough to read that.
Not enough to read that exactly. I'm not that masochistic. So.
Yeah, the BDSM is just—it's like for the people who read it. Like reading it is a punishment. You're like, oh my God, this is fucking torture. Yeah.
So BDSM, decision theory, Dungeons and Dragons fiction, and then Yudkowsky adds, which Jan apparently refuses to read.
Refuses? Yeah. Oh my God. Oh God.
The hubris and the cringe hubris, let's put it that way, is just off the charts.
So some other figures that he is pretty close to outside of, Peter Thiel and the AI space, Aella, she is that rationalist sex researcher on Twitter. And I'm reading in your blog that he describes her as one of Earth's great scientists.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So she's someone else who has no formal education, which in that itself is not a bad thing. We're all autodidacts to some extent.
Yeah.
But I don't think she's ever published a peer-reviewed article before. And there are actual like academic researchers who are very critical of her methodology. She relies a lot on like internet surveys and stuff like that. And
I'm sorry I'm making this face. Yeah. The reason that I'm making this face is because I just read from your piece on Yudkowsky that I'll link in the comments that in 2013, Yudkowsky wrote on Reddit, I've recently acquired a sex slave who will earn her orgasms by completing math assignments. That's fucking... I'm sorry. Look... I don't really care what you do in your bedrooms, listeners. I support you and having all the happiness that you want with other consenting adults. But I think that occasionally a person can be so disgusting that they must be banned from sexual interaction and that Yudkowsky has crossed the threshold.
I resisted the urge to mention so many other things that sort of verge on the personal. In that newsletter article that I published, for example, somebody saved Yudkowsky's, I think it was OkCupid profile. And it's something. It's something to behold. And I remember when, I think this was on Facebook, when I guess he broke up with his partner, like, I don't know exactly, but something like 8 years ago. He posted on social media, I think it was Facebook, that he's looking for a new partner. Then he had a list of like basically do's and don'ts. And one was, if you want rationality training, don't try to get that by dating me. Right? Like, I'm going to.
Oh, yeah. Like, there's a line out the door. Rationality training. Oh, my God.
I know. And again, just listeners, like, reflect on some of the things we've mentioned. Like, maybe it's okay morally to kill infants up to age 6. Maybe you should choose.
Yeah, everyone wants to have a kid with that guy. Yeah, everyone wants to have a kid with the guy that wants to kill a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Also, infants up to age 6 is not a thing. That's not what an infant is. This guy is dumb as fuck. Like, it's not an infant anymore. That's a full-on first grader. Like.
So, yeah, I mean, we could go on. There are other examples. In fact, there is one example that I'd like to mention here, which brings us back to earlier quotes that I read of Yudkowsky talking about how, for example, he'd be willing to sacrifice all of humanity in order to ensure that there is some like worthy successor, a superintelligence that takes our place. On another occasion, so this was actually the Bankless podcast that he was on. And he, after recording the podcast episode, he did a Q&A on Twitter. And in the Q&A, which I hadn't come across until like probably a month ago, and I can't believe I somehow missed it, or somebody didn't send it to me, because he makes the following claims. So I'll quote 2 paragraphs in full. So first of all, he says, "I have a basic moral question about whether it's ethical for humans to have human children, if having transhuman children is an option instead. Like these humans running around, are they like the current humans who wanted eternal youth, but like not the brain upgrade?" So he's saying that, maybe there will be some humans who decide to radically extend their lifespans, but they opt not to radically augment their cognitive system. Right. So he goes on to say, "Because I do see the case for letting an existing person choose. No, I just want eternal youth and no brain upgrades. Thank you." He adds, "But then if you're deliberately having the equivalent of a very crippled child, when you could just as easily have a not crippled child. In other words, once the possibility of creating post-human children is there, then deciding to have an unenhanced human child is the equivalent in that future post-human era to having a quote-unquote crippled child now." And that word is not one I ever utter unless I'm quoting a eugenicist like Yudkowsky, right?
Yeah.
It's such an awful word. I mean, it's a word that appears in one of Donald Trump's books, right? Super cringe. It's just really an offensive term. He goes on to say, like, should humans in their present form be around together? Are we like kind of too sad in some ways?
I like how he talks like a Valley girl.
Yeah.
Are we like too sad? Yeah.
Maybe that's just the way I'm reading it. But I mean, the word "like"
You're
does
reading
appear
the
a lot.
words. Yeah.
I'd like to say that the happy future looks like beings of light having lots of fun in a nicely connected computing fabric. That is to say, a computer simulation. Powered by the sun, that is to say, a Dyson swarm. If we haven't taken the sun apart yet, maybe there's enough real sentiment in people that you just like clear all the humans off Earth and leave the entire place as a park. Yeah, like that was always the thing. Actually, he says things. That was always the things to be fought for. That was always the point from the perspective of everyone who's been in this for a long time, meaning like basically in the test grill community. Right. So he's literally saying here, like, maybe I don't know what he means by if there's enough real sentiment. I have no idea what he means by that. But his claim is that, I don't know, maybe enough people would like realize, oh yeah, this future of super intelligent beings, it's so valuable that we should just like clear off Earth, bring about human extinction, the extinction of our species, and just leave Earth as this like pristine park for the super intelligences to enjoy. So, I mean, this is like digital eugenics, like to an extreme.
So, what is his book about? I hesitate to ask because, after all this, part of me really does not want to know. But that is what prompted the episode today: is that he just wrote a book.
Yep.
What kind of and it's not about Harry Potter or BDSM, I guess. It's a real book. I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi in the book.
Okay.
There are numerous like fables. So these little like fictional like vignettes that he introduces to try to make his point. I find that they just obscure the point.
You know what? I'm like, he's fucking sold me in a way. I now want to be replaced by a digital being. I don't want to exist in this world anymore. I don't think I need to hear any more about this kind of stuff. I'm done. It's fine. Replace me with a computer that has fun. I don't care. I can't live with this level of cringe anymore.
Yeah. This is sort of like the bumper sticker Asteroid 2016 during in the lead up to the presidential election. Yeah, just end it already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so his book is an attempt to distill and telescope the ideas that he's developed is too strong a word, that he's sort of promoted over the past 25 years or so. Since he started off in the 1990s and very early 2000s being a vocal and energetic advocate of developing superintelligence as quickly as possible. He was a full-on AI accelerationist. And then he realized, oh, actually, maybe superintelligence could be quite dangerous. So he changed his tune and became a doomer, right? So the book is trying to like put together in an accessible way all of these ideas that he has discussed on Less Wrong. And it was co-authored with Nate Soares. There was it might have been like the New York Times, I can't remember the exact source, where Nate Soares said that his contribution, or at least his main contribution, was whittling down the book like 200%, right? Because as previously established, Yudkowsky is an extremely long-winded writer. 1.8 million words was his Dungeons and Dragons BDSM decision theory book, right? And so Nate Soares just truncated the book quite a bit to try to make it a bit more readable. I still found it to be quite unreadable, and in fact, there are even people in the test group community, some effective altruists, and even some rationalists who were saying that they found the writing to be pretty awful.
I'm sure, yeah. It seems like he's too arrogant to allow himself to be edited.
Yeah. I think that's probably true.
Like, he needs to have someone say to him, hey, this 10-page sequence can be one sentence, but he's like, oh, well, then people will miss my incredible wisdom,
Yeah. So I think, the book aims to make the case that, the title is, if anyone builds it, everyone dies. And so the claim is that if there's anybody anywhere who builds a superintelligent computer, then the outcome, the consequence, will be that everybody who's living on Earth will perish.
But he wants the superintelligent computer. So weird. I understand that it's like complicated because we got to get to the point where we can control the superintelligent computer first. And it's like, oh, we need a little more time to catch up. But it's just, if you truly believe that AI is going to kill everyone, stop building AI. It's not that hard,
So his claim is that, he doesn't say this in the book. This is something that I foreground in the review that I wrote. He is not anti-superintelligence, right? He just wants superintelligence to be controllable. And what does controllable mean? It means that it is going to realize the particular techno-utopian vision that he has been advocating, right? That's what a controllable ASI is. So he wants that as soon as possible. He just thinks we're not ready yet. And consequently, if we build AGI or superintelligence in the foreseeable future, it will by default be uncontrollable. And consequently, it will destroy the utopian future we could have otherwise created. Right. So I think this is a key point that people should understand because it's not in the book. If you read the book, you'll get the impression that the authors are anti-ASI, artificial superintelligence. They're not anti-ASI. They're just anti-ASI being built right now or in the near future by the particular companies that are leading the way, like OpenAI and DeepMind and so on.
So where does Altman and some of the other big AI figures, where do they stand on Yudkowsky?
Good question. So, Altman has said before that Yudkowsky is one of the individuals who inspired him and many other people in the field to get into the field in the first place, right? So, Altman was a part of he still is a part of the test group community, but he was a part of the effective altruist and rationalist community, right? There's a New York Times profile on Altman that explicitly talks about this. So Altman has read Yudkowsky. Greg Brockman, who's also a key figure at OpenAI, he used to read all of Yudkowsky's sequences on Less Wrong. So these are people who are intimately familiar with his work. There's even a picture out there of Yudkowsky at a party right next to, or basically hugging Altman and Grimes. Right? So they're all in the same kind of circle. The thing is that Altman started off being kind of a doomer and saying, yeah, superintelligence is super, super dangerous. He even promoted Nick Bostrom's book, published in 2014, titled Superintelligence, saying that this is one of the best books on the associated risks of building superintelligent machines. And that book by Bostrom is basically a summary of Yudkowsky's blog posts, right? So there was a review of the 2014 book by Bostrom, Superintelligence, the review was written by Ben Goertzel, who is an extropian, transhumanist, cosmist, etc. He's very involved in the test world movement. And in the review of Bostrom's book, he says, scratch the surface of Bostrom, you find Yudkowsky. Right? So the point is, Altman is drawing from Bostrom's book. He's hanging out with Yudkowsky. Yudkowsky has been massively influential in the race to build superintelligence. Yudkowsky was basically the one who introduced Demis Hassabis to Peter Thiel, right? So Demis Hassabis was a co-founder of DeepMind. He really wanted to start this company to build superintelligence, but he didn't have any money. Then Demis Hassabis gave a talk at Yudkowsky's Singularity Summit. And it was after Hassabis's talk that Yudkowsky and him went to Peter Thiel's mansion, where Demis Hassabis asked Peter Thiel for money, and Peter Thiel said yes. And that's how DeepMind got started. Right? So Yudkowsky has such an integral, crucial role in the unfolding of the current race to build AGI. It's a great irony of the situation. Somebody who is now screaming at the top of his lungs that we need to halt the AGI race, at least for a time, at least until we know how to create controllable superintelligence, that he is in many ways responsible or disproportionately responsible for the emergence of this AGI race in the first place. It's just a great irony.
Well, this is all really horrifying. I am sure that this will not be the last time we talk about Yudkowsky on this podcast, because as you've noted, he is a major figure in these terrible, I was going to say terrible, movement. It's not a movement. This is it's 100 assholes with extraordinary power. Yeah. But this was disgusting. I am so upset that I know about Yudkowsky's math slaves. I'm still friends with you, but please don't tell me anything like that in the future ever again. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I oftentimes think of this line from Elizabeth Sandifer, who wrote a fantastic book called Neo-Reaction is a Basilisk, in which she repeatedly calls Yudkowsky a fraud.
He is a fraud.
He is a fraud, yes. And so I think that little book of hers is quite good. She was being interviewed by Nathan Robinson And at one point, she said, Nathan made a comment like, it's really unfortunate that you and I spend so much time reading like the worst people on earth. And she says,
Yeah.
yes, due to what can only be described as poor life choices, we've ended up in careers where we're required to read the writings of these people. And so that just really, I felt seen. That really like hit hard when I read it.
So I guess like one last little note I want to add here, just to briefly address the political realm. I know a lot of this is happening in the kind of like technology realm, but like it's not like there is just one of the parties that these people have influence in. Obviously, the AI Yudkowsky acolytes like Peter Thiel have had enormous influence within the Trump administration. But if you look at who is funding and putting forward a lot of policies for the current Democratic Party, it's all people that are closely associated with Yudkowsky, like Dustin Moskowitz, major funder of like Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Policy think tanks at this point, and he's, I think, one of the main funders of MIRI at this point, right? Through open philanthropy. And
it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, anyway, he's close with Yudkowsky and has spent a lot of money on whatever the kind of like, I don't know, the AI Doom research or whatever, but like Kelsey Piper, who is very close to Yudkowsky, she is kind of one of the main pundits who is, at the argument and continually, listened to by the party's donors. Matthew Iglesias is hanging around with these people. Like, I think that these people have gotten an undue amount of political influence, I think. And to me, like, the specific reason that's concerning is I do think that they are seeing, I do think that when we're talking about like AI regulation and what AI regulation needs to happen, unfortunately, like, for the people that are making our laws, these types of people who are in their ear, who are, I think, really minimizing the importance of the AI regulation that we absolutely do need. For example, like, can't make like a, porn of people or whatever, or like you can't, surveil everyone all the time. Right. I don't know. Like it's frustrating to me that they're fake AI regulation is what the donors are listening to right now.
Yeah. So I would say, once again, this is why understanding these people is important, right? It's not just masochism and self-hatred, right? There's another point to actually understanding who Yudkowsky is, understanding the arguments that he has defended over the years and that he makes in his book, because he's a guy who, I mean, somehow through getting really, really lucky and being at the right place at the right time, met the right billionaires who were able to fund his institute. Peter Thiel has given money to the Singularity Institute, which again is now the Machine Intelligence Research Institute. And so he's ended up with a lot of, a lot of power. I mean, he was also, influential within this like very niche community of rationalists / EAs. He was influential. Of course, the effective altruist community has received billions, tens of billions of dollars in either like actual money or just committed funding, right, from people like Dustin Moskowitz. So as a result of all of that, for all of those reasons, right, Yudkowsky is a guy with power. So I think it's important to pay attention to him, even though he is such an abhorrent guy who knows almost nothing about the stuff he pontificates about. And it's just sort of an indictment of our, like, the intellectual culture we have these days, that he has somehow become this figure of noted influence. Yeah.
Well, Anyways, listeners, we're really sorry about all this. I will say one thing that I didn't mention earlier in the show is that one of our listeners I know in real life is a friend of mine, and she's a pig farmer, and she loves the pigs very much. She's more of a person on the pig farm that loves and plays with the pigs and like saves dozens and dozens of them until there's too many pets. But it's like it's like an ethical, free range pig farm kind of situation where they all have very good lives and stuff. And she loves them, and they love people as much as dogs do. And she's going to be deeply offended, I think, at the suggestion that pigs do not have consciousness. So
As am I. Yeah.
yeah. All right, listeners, we will see you later this week for a Patreon episode. Thank you so much for tuning in.